Tony's agreed to be our MC for this session, so I'm going to pin there, and we'll pin up all of the other participants.
Yes, please.
Yes.
And in fact, pin them over me.
Okay, we will. And could you tell us a little bit about who you are?
So my name is Dr. Toni D'orsay. I am the Director of Trans Services for Borrego Health in inland Southern California. I'm also a member of the HARP Palm Springs, which is HIV AIDS. Oh gosh, I'm going to get in trouble now.
Tell us later.
And I am a member of the, thank you, HIV plus Aging Research Project in Palm Springs. I am also a member on the Inland Empire TGA Planning Council. So I serve to represent the trans population, although I also incidentally have to represent Borrego Health because we all know how that works.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of work around this, and after about 20 years, I figured that I'm good where I am, but I am not the central voice here. I am Black and white and Native. For those who are curious about my background and why they asked me. So do we have our guests?
That's what I'm looking through the chat. We have so many people on the chat.
I know Cuban's here. I saw her.
Let's see.
I pinned you, B.
You pinned her?
Yeah. I'm looking through the chat as well. If you're on this panel, raise your hand.
Yeah, if you're on the, there we go. Here.
I got you, boo. Don't worry.
I'm missing Mallory. Is Mallory here?
If Mallory has anything to deal with like me, it's the fact that it's early morning still out here in California.
I'll text her.
Yeah, no, I should acknowledge all West Coast participants and thank them very much for getting up so early.
Well, let's see. Can't quite track anybody else down. It's a lot of bodies. I
know.
To see this. This is good. This is good. Oh, we have a question in the chat for Laurie. How can an IRB with generalist members make such judgments in all the specialized areas you listed? I understand how things are/have been. That doesn't rule out the need for us to consider how we might do better. And IRBs outsourced to a company located somewhere else present a whole other set of ethical challenges, much discussion due. As a note, I'm popped in and I'm listening to that all of a thing. There's currently a trans-specific IRB being developed. That I will be on.
Well, which university or institution?
It's the institution is actually Trans Health. We're doing it as a standalone.
Talk about
and it's being linked between California and I believe it's Massachusetts.
Fabulous. Fabulous. You'll have to come back and tell us about it.
Dallas Dakar is the person to look up. Dr. Dakar is pretty impressive. I really like her a lot. I was trying to push one through for years, and then ran into her, and she's like, "No, this is a great idea. Let's go do it." I'm like, "Yes, go." So we have a lot of there. Okay, so
let's go on, and I'll text Mallory, and then we can decide how to.
Alrighty. So can we hear from the other two panelists? Can we hear from our folks and see what's going on? Let them introduce themselves real quick.
Yeah, Sydney, do you want to go?
Yes, hi there. Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney Rogers. My pronouns are they and she. I'm the education and trainings manager with a organization called Trans Can Work that does gender inclusive training to companies and also helps trans and non-binary people. We actually say TGI over here in LA. TGI people standing for transgender, diverse, and intersex people find work. I'm also a board member of Gender Justice LA. I'm also the director of the TGMB project, and I sit on a coalition of the California TGI Policy Alliance that got AB 2218 passed a couple of years ago with Newsom, the Trans Wellness and Equity Fund. And I'm also the author of an article about Black trans women and femmes and the lack of inclusion of HIV research that was published on thebody.com also. So, and I'm also in grad school getting my master's in social work to become a social worker and to work into policy as well. So I hold a lot, and I'm also a professional drag queen too, also a performer, actor, and singer too. So yeah, multifaceted, multidisciplined, and so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. Thank you. Mallory is still on the way. Do we have B? I'm pretty sure we saw B.
Yes, I'm here.
There's B.
Hello, everyone. Hope you are well. My name is Queen B, Chiera Meki, and I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm also an AVAC PX for Africa, TG. Then also I'm under spotlight on national, what we call the reference group. I'm representing on issues to do with gender-based violence as a trans person representing the whole community and the LGBTI community. Then also, I'm also a fellow for HIV for Cure. Then under ministry, I'm working with the task force team on PrEP rollout for the key population in Zimbabwe. So basically, this is me, and I'm coming from Trans and Intersex Rising in Zimbabwe, where I am a program director for the organization, which is specifically for trans community and intersex community. Thank you.
All right, that's fantastic. So we've got them. Hopefully Mallory will pop on here soon. In the interim, for the questions I have here for Sydney and B are, first off, one of the challenges that we see happening within the trans population is the collection of demographics, particularly within very highly developed westernized countries where the limited number of demographic categories tends to create an erasure, whether it's intentional or not. It still does happen. And this has caused a lot of challenges, particularly in the United States, in ensuring that we are included in such things. Do you think that agitating for demographics puts us at risk of being essentially erased from our inclusion in cure trials?
I can answer, at least from my opinion. When the HIV epidemic started and stuff like that, there was a huge, we know about the protests and everything that happened, but the inclusion of Black African American TGI people was not even there. Even when it comes to AHF now, when they talk about condoms and research and so forth, it's always white faces that are put up in the forefront about about like Black trans people don't even have sex, according to them, or we just do sex work and that's it. The whole aspect of inclusion came up, for at least for me, when Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and all the protests were happening. I realized that still Black trans femmes and black trans women were still not being acknowledged of the need for research and inclusion and so forth. In my article, a study had come out and they had only interviewed 10 Black trans women. 10. Right? And called that a study. I was like, that's a study? I know at least 15 Black trans women on my Facebook, let alone how many across. So already there's a need for inclusion. There's a need for intentionality. I think that's where a lot of this comes from too. Being intentional of being inclusive, being intentional about adding other voices to what's happening. And Black trans women and Black femmes have the higher, I think 3 times higher rates of HIV diagnosis than the regular population. And no one's talking about that because what? We're Black. So that's where I really, you see, I get heated about that kind of stuff
Mhm.
because it's such a dangerous, premise for everyone to do.
It truly is. Did you have any comments there, QB?
Yes, I do. So for me, I'll start from the inclusion issue. I think there is an issue of like we're not being involved in we are not invited into the table for the healthy sector and other platforms where healthy decisions are being made, especially on research. Then also what I discovered is that there's need for separation for MSM and trans women. There's been a loophole of like most of the time when the research is there, they end up like bunching us with MSM. So at the end of the day, it's more of trans women, they are the same as MSM. So that's another problem that we are encountering when it comes to researches. Also, the other thing is resources. We as African countries, we have issues to do with resources. They lack. Then also lack of information. You talked about demographic. We also, in our countries like Zimbabwe, we have rural areas where we're talking about rolling out PrEP. We're rolling it in the major cities, which are Harare and Bulawayo. So imagine what about a person who's in a rural area? Would they access it? No. We have KP-friendly clinics, which are in those cities. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of like up and down. And I wanted to just put this as to say the laws of the country. Can we say the laws or the constitution? They also sort of like hinder us from getting what we want to access on sexual reproductive health rights. So I would just put those as a comment to say that these are some of the major issues that we have at this point.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So the one of the things to take away from that is the fact that, yeah, this has an impact. And so that when people are doing this information, they need to recognize that things like MSM, grouping trans women with MSM, is saying that they're not women. And it does not matter whether when you say to a trans person that you're not a woman, if you're a trans woman, and especially if you're a Black trans woman, where we have to fight just to be able to walk down the freaking street as ourselves, with all of the other stuff that goes with it. If you say to them that what you're saying is we don't actually want you to participate, and if you're trying to create a cure, then you want the people who are the hardest to get, is my particular take on this. My next question is, history shows that we are often knocked out of the running for cures and other things. What do you think cis folk can do to ensure that we're given access to start? I'll start with QB this time around.
So can you rephrase the question, sorry?
Yeah, what is it, because we're often, when it comes to any kind of research, we're often ignored or we're pushed out because we're considered outliers, or we're not the right, we don't work very well for this particular situation. What do you think that cisgender people who are not trans and not intersex, can do in order to make sure that we are given that access and we are included?
So I think what people can do to help us also maintain to help us also advocate for us to be part of this process, I think there's a lot of engagement that needs to be done. And whenever there are discussions, we need to be also involved. And I think from my aspect, because when I'm looking at right now, we're having these PEPFAR meetings and all that. So if we don't have a voice in the PEPFAR sector, it means that we are being left behind. So there's need for us to engage the country on a level, from the community level to the highest level. Then to those who are allies, they should also be getting involved, like getting the information about trans. Because I can say from this, from our end of Africa in Zimbabwe, majority of people were saying, we don't know about this. We just see you as MSM, you're gay people, you're just looking for opportunities. How can I say this is a woman? Because already with our poor economy, at the end of the day, you haven't transformed anything yet, and you are trying to struggle to get hormones from South Africa. It becomes more of like, okay, you're doing ritual and you want money. And whenever you talk about trans or LGBTIQ, people will only think that you're looking for money. So at the end of the day, we are having a lot of backlash when it comes to some platforms. And when we get into those platforms, trying to claim your space to say that I am a woman as well. And at the end of the day, women are also standing on their own side saying that you are not qualified to be a woman. And then also MSM are saying you're not qualified to be a man because already you're too much. How you express yourself is too much. So, hey, we're a bit of like, we are in the middle of nowhere to go. But I would like to say to those who we already have as allies, they have helped us also to get into some of the spaces. We have some big organizations which we have in Zimbabwe, like GAUs. They are well known, and you would be like, they are allies, and we'll make sure that we are with them everywhere they go to do advocacy and lobbying. Yeah, these are some of my sentiments.
Outstanding, thank you. And it's really important that we hear from you. I'm really thankful that you're here, QB. Sydney, how about you? Would you like
well, two things come to mind. Well, actually, three things come to mind. One are CABs, community advisory boards, comes to mind, and when it comes to being inclusion and so forth, developing these CABs that trans femmes and trans women can be on and speak their truth, in this research, in outreach and so forth. There has to be a collaborative effort between hospitals and clinics and organizations and agencies. There still seems to be a divide, especially when it comes to paying trans femmes and trans women for their time, for their opinions, and so forth. The other thing that comes to mind is incorporating HIV research and awareness within gender affirming care to boot. When we actually go to doctors and get our hormones and so forth, they don't ask us about our HIV status. They don't ask us about STDs. They just want to give us our hormones and give us our shots and our pills and send us about our way. We're talking about wraparound full services when it comes to when it comes to going to the doctors and clinics and so forth. And it's interesting that we're willing to get our hormones and estrogen and so forth, but they don't want to talk to us about condoms and other aspects. So again, there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect there about talking about those things. And I put it on our community. Don't get it twisted. I put it on our community to right? I put it on our community for black trans femmes and black women to talk about HIV and to get tested and to be on top of that kind of stuff too. Our focus can't just be on our surgeries and our FFS and so forth too. And I've talked to other black trans femmes about, do you talk about HIV? Do you talk about, that have you been tested? And they're like, why are you asking me that, girl? And I'm like, because that's called being an adult and being an adult about our stuff too. So it has to become from both sides on this issue. We can't just, I can't sit here and just blame the medical industry and blame white folks and blame all these other people for not being inclusive when we as a black community, and again, within the black community, there's a disconnect between black gay men and black trans women and working together just as black folks. Even within BLM, yes, I'm calling out Black Lives Matter. They do not even recognize black trans women and the deaths that come from Trans Day of Remembrance within Black Lives Matter itself. That's why we have to do Black Trans Lives Matter on our own, because we're not even being recognized within the black community. So there's some disconnects, within the medical community, in the clinics, within the black community, within the black gay man community. There's so many disconnects because everyone's in their own silos doing the work. And yes, it's great work, but there needs to be some cross communication.
Outstanding. Has Mallory hopped in?
We have not found her yet. I don't think she's on.
Well, now that I know where Sydney is, I'm gonna have to drive down there.
She'll make it.
She'll make it. Now that I know where Sydney is, I'll drive down there and bug her.
Yes, come on down. We'll get some soul food, girl.
Oh yeah. Oh God, I haven't had good chicken and waffles since I was in Philly last. You know what I'm saying? But so my next question is going to really kind of close this out, and that's a lot of what we see is the intersectionality of oppressions that we as trans women, and particularly and specifically as Black trans women, encounter in our daily lives. We all know that we have the vagaries of colorism, as I'm particularly familiar with, and that allow me to use the fact that, I am not very dark skinned in order to be able to push my way into systems and crack open doors. And then what do is I bring everybody else in behind me, and then I just close the door back. I leave and close the door back and say, okay, you're there, have a nice day. But we see a lot of that. And my next question is for both of you. What do you see as the importance of that kind of activity, the ability to bring in others to step up and let others then do the speaking among the rest of us within the community? Because it's not just on those of us who are lighter skinned, it's on all of us, in my opinion. And I'm curious how you two see it. So let's go back to Sydney and start with her.
The first thing that comes to mind when it comes to this is other organizations to allow Black trans femmes and Black women to be in leadership roles. It's not enough to just get our sad stories or our tragic stories of us on the street and then put us up on a podium and tell us our stories. But we need to be in leadership roles. We need to be in areas that we can really speak our truth. This is one of the reasons why I want to go into policy work with my social work, getting my master's, because we don't see Black trans social workers. We don't see Black trans people up in legislation. We're always going to the other people to advocate for us. So and so forth. And so I think there needs to be an inclusion and intentional, and I talked about this earlier about intention. There needs to be an intentional inclusion, not to just put us up on pedestals and tell our stories, but to put us right with everyone else when it comes to putting our voices out there, when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to policy, and especially when it comes to funds. California, and I don't know about other states, but California has tons of funds that are going all over the place, but there's these gatekeepers, God bless them, but there's these gatekeepers of like making us jump through hoops of fire to get these funds to go into communities. So it's all about those who are doing the work and those who are doing the grassroots, and there needs to be a collaboration of some sort. And I'm not saying dismantle everything, but I am saying dismantle everything.
I'm just getting blood. Yeah, tear it all down, start again.
Right? Because there are people who have been operating on the status quo on getting their funds and so forth, and Black trans women and Black trans femmes being an afterthought. And our community is suffering because of that. So it's time to like bring this up. If we're really woke, if we're really intentional, if we're really going into 2022 with a new way of thinking, then we need to dismantle these things and realize, oh, I need to step back and let others step in.
Fantastic. Thank you. QB.
So what I would say is like, for us in Africa, it's a bit difficult, but what we have done is that we have a lot of community members in different, what we call different platforms. Some are doing lobbying as trans organizations, because like in Zimbabwe, we have 3 trans organizations. So basically there are others who are doing research, and it's not a research that we are saying that it has to go through the medical and all that due to, the country's laws. So some of us, we are now lobbying for the policies, we know about comprehensive sexual reproductive health rights. We don't have hormone gender affirming into it. So we are lobbying for us to be also having that, where it's talking about the policy to allow us to get hormones from the hospitals or the clinics that we are working with, which are KP friendly. but we're still stuck somewhere somehow because we are fighting as a group. At the end of the day, you get a burnout of like, you are restricted where to go. As the last speaker said about the gatekeepers, we still have the big gatekeepers who censor every word that we talk about. And I think our voices, maybe the most vocal voices are from the centers, from the main major cities. But voices from the rural areas, they are not seen at all. So it means that in Africa, it's almost like we have some rural areas where communities are more of like, if they say anything, they'll be banished from the cities, from their villages. Then I have also discovered that trans men's voices are not heard. And whenever we talk about researchers and everything, the trans men they are silenced. And I would say right now we are grooming a lot of trans men to come into the space and claim their voices as well. Because whenever this research of MSM, and then later on it's added to say, oh, trans women, for the target to, they want the target to be touchable so that they will add up trans women at the end. So they leave out the trans men. And I know one thing that I have understood about trans men, they need also the sexual reproductive health compound, but they are not. At the end of the day, it's almost like trans women, they're too vocal and they're getting into all the spaces. But at the end of the day, it's now we're roping even our boys to say, boys, come to the table. Let's start making noise together. But this is initially where we are, to say that we need to fight together. Because right now we have whatever it takes as united, not divided. One, we get hormones from black market. Two, sometimes, the black market, sometimes there are cheaters who also come in with water, pretending it's a hormonal, and it's not. And the side effect, we don't have clinics like in Zimbabwe where we can go and be monitored how we're taking hormones, our admin. So it becomes more another issue. And earlier on, I think my colleague talked about the doctor asking you, are you on any treatment on hormonal therapy? They don't even ask. They presume that they will give you just the medication for HIV. It's done. But they need also to ask, because sometimes with the black market, you wouldn't know which one am I taking the hormonal replacement. So it's another issue that is also rising from us trans community. There's need for research for us so that you will be able to give me the right package for me to access maybe to be monitored on HIV. So these are some of the things that I would allude to say that as much as we are here, we might be having this privilege to speak, but there are a lot of other people who would want to speak. They need that. That's why we are now roping in the trans men. I think from my end, that's one thing that I've discovered. Thank you.
I saw a hand up. Did y'all see the hand? I think DeAndre.
Did not see the hand.
Sorry to interrupt. Queen Bee.
No,
Girl,
we're at time. So yeah, let's go with some Q&A.
DeAndre, are you in the?
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
welcome.
Yes. And thank you all for speaking today. It's more so just of a comment before I got to go back to work, but it's one of those things about how we're tokenized for their data, for a lot of communities. Well, they tokenize us for their panels, and then when it comes down to the grants, majority of the Black organizations have to share grants, and I don't know, that was the only thing that was just echoing in my head, and I just wanted to express. It was just really grinding my gears, and I say that as a cisgender homosexual male in the space, but I just noticed that it happens to Black trans women and queer folks that are Black more often than most. It's almost to the point of being frustrated with it. I worked in the sector of HIV for almost 4 years, and I got out because I just got so tired of being that token. And I noticed that it happens with me, but it happens more so with trans women that are Black more often than most. And I don't know. I just needed to just express that. It was just grinding my gears sitting here. I just needed to yell it out. Excuse me for interrupting.
There's a fine line I noticed between advocacy and tokenism, and I noticed that they give us a little piece of the pie and make all the Black people trans, gay, straight, and make us all like think that this pie is this small and that we all have to get a little sliver slice and be glad to get it, right? Be glad to get it because God forbid that we ask for more or we have the audacity to demand more, even though we pay our taxes and so forth too here over here in the United States. And so a lot of agencies that I'm working with, we're all about empowering each other to demand more, and again going into the policy and legislation and asking those people who are sitting in those tables to make the pie bigger and cut a bigger slice and add some whipped cream on it too. Okay, it's all about going to the source instead of making everyone work for the little pieces that are left over. I'm like, go over to the bakery that's making the pies and ask for more of them and sit at the table and demand more of them too.
Absolutely. One of my rules is if you aren't giving us as big a chunk, then you're not doing the job right. One of the things I like to hear every now and then that in my particular area is people were really like, well, there's only like 0.1% of the population that's trans. And I'll point out that depends on how you define the trans population. Per the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, which is the premier organization for determining all of this wonderful stuff, in their upcoming SOC 8, Standards of Care version 8, they have an entire chapter on how many trans people are there. And it turns out that it depends on how you ask that question.
Exactly. And the numbers have gone up to identify as trans femme non-binary. So there's a whole area of gender queer, gender variant, gender diverse, non-binary, gender non-conforming. There's a whole area of us that are not even being counted because again, our communities think binary of like there's only trans men and trans women and there's nothing in between. And our population is getting more and more recognized and bigger.
And but here's the point I'm actually getting to. So the different studies that have been done have asked in different ways, and the results on those studies have varied from 0.1% all the way up to 8.4%. So the question that we often get asked is, well, how many of you are there so we know how to disperse your stuff? And again, that comes back to that data collection piece. You can't count somebody if you don't listen to who they say they are.
Exactly, or absolutely dismiss them.
Yeah, I mean, and as an example, in some of the reporting tools that we see these days, there's the question of, oh, well, we're just going to report transgender. So it's all of them. Well, that's an awful lot of potential people.
Right.
Basically, I would want to say the issue is more about data.
It's very much a data.
The data is not on the table. But the issue
about
now
data.
is, the competition is how many are you? For us to program for you on HIV, we need that data now. So at the end of the day, we are a small group and we don't have resources to do that research. And for us to go through the whole process, it takes a long time, maybe rejected. They would just be looking for money to fundraising for their researches. So it becomes now more of a problem for the trans community to come up to say that, okay, we want to do a research based on trans men or based on this group or this. So at the end of the day, that's why we're being bunched as MSM, because we don't have resources. So that small pie now would ask, we are now asking to have a big pie so that we could say, no, this one is only for the trans community. We want to understand how the community is surviving. These are some of the issues now they are killing us now.
Indeed.
All right.
Real quick, you got some hands up. Just wanted to bring it to your attention. Go
okay.
for it.
Let me see if I can spot some of these hands. We're running over.
So let me ask my question, since I have that, and then we'll have William, and then we'll have to move on to the next topic. But my question I wanted to bring up at the beginning of this, it came up about that study that only had 10 trans women. If I had the magic to start all of that over and give the funds to you all, how would you want to organize a study like that to be more inclusive and expansive? So imagine I have a pocket full of money that I can just lend to this, and I'm going to use Sydney. How would you want to reframe and restructure that study?
First and foremost is collaboration with agencies that are already doing the work. It's first and foremost. I think a lot of people with the money and stuff don't reach out to the agencies and we have social media. I mean, getting a graphic and putting out on social media to cross pollinate along all the other agencies will be the first and foremost. And second, pay trans femmes and trans women for their time, for their effort, for their opinions, and so forth. Not just a little drip in a bucket or a muffin and a survey, but actually paying them along the whole time of doing this kind of work. And also on the other side, communicate to Black trans femmes and trans women that this data is important. There's a lot of mistrust. Y'all heard from the Tuskegee stuff and stuff like that. There's a lot of mistrust on giving data and giving information, but I'm trying to communicate to a lot of our Black siblings that if we don't have that data, that's how we get the funds. That's how we get to serve you better. So it's this communication and using that money to fund studies, to get research, to get the word out. I think the word doesn't get out until they've already, because there's always a time limit on the study, right? And you only have so much time to get so many people. So that's where the money really needs to go, to spreading the word, so that you have an abundance of riches of data coming in, as opposed to we got 10 people and we're over.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, Michael, I just want to point out that you already started off on the wrong foot in your hypothetical. Yes. And the reason you started off in the wrong foot is because you said you already have the money.
Right.
So that means, did you already have the money with a trans person on the team that went and got the money?
Exactly. Yes.
If you don't have a trans woman right there, trans women totally must be involved. Yeah. Half the reason that I get so busy is because I try to be everywhere that somebody needs a trans woman to be involved. And if I can't, I'm like, you over there, come here. I'm going to put you right here. This is your chair. Have a nice day. Move on. Now that I have Sydney in my link, I'm going to be like, oh, Sydney, hey, there's this group going on over here. And most of it's because I don't have the time. And a lot of people who do bring me in say, well, Toni, you've got like 10,000 degrees. And I'm like, yeah, because I sat on my ass and didn't get out of college when I was supposed to. I'm sorry, it's a scary world out here.
I'd rather be overqualified than underqualified. Things.
Very much so. Amen. But don't put that stuff about degrees. I'm going to tell you an absolutely horrible truth that nobody really wants to realize. I have a degree in sociology, where that's my doctorate. I have my master's in psychology, and I've had a practice as well as done research. I've got a degree in religion. That's the last of my advanced degrees. And I've got a bunch of bachelors in little tiny fields that happen to collect along the way. Now, the interesting thing is not one of those things ever had anything to do with transgender people. Not one of them. There is no education on transgender lives, and that's my expertise, is the lives of trans people. So everything that I've had to learn, while yes, my background allowed me to learn it a little differently and allowed me to frame it and visualize it in a specific way, the key element is the knowledge that I have, QB has. The knowledge that I have, Sydney has. And while you're going to get varying degrees of capability and everything else as you go along that. And you're also going to get varying degrees of malefice and benefice. I'm not going to lie. You can still rely on trans people and never do just one. We're like Lay's potato chips. If you can only do just one, I don't know what's wrong with you. So there was another question. Can you?
Yes, William, do you want to ask your question?
It's more of a comment and a statement. You guys have I have 3 new heroes here in Philadelphia. My panelists, you guys have said my word. I say, flip that table. I'm not sitting at any more tables. Forget it. I don't want a piece of the pie. I know how to bake myself. If I'm not in the kitchen planning that menu, I'm going to tell you what you're going to be served. You will not tell me how much I can have, how much I cannot. I used to be a fat American, but I'm no longer. it's not over till the fat boy sings. And as I say, I wear a size 30 pants now, and I'm singing no time soon. So what I say to you all who have degrees, I don't have a degree, but what I do have is the same knowledge and experiences that you do. You will not define me as a degree or as a gay Black male, also mixed race. I decide that. You don't. You look at me, you don't see that I'm handicapped because most of you wouldn't know that because you haven't seen me. But in the same token, we cannot be complacent. I think we need to get more back to the way things were, go old school style. We had to demand. Forget leaving that door open. I'm not leaving the door open for nobody. I'm taking it down. Just come on in. Come on in, because that's what you have done. You've just walked in. You're telling me how to think, how to feel, where I should be, how to identify myself. You don't even know the question to ask me, well, how can you help me? Which is a basic question. How can you help me help you? We don't get asked that.
They already figure they know. Yeah.
They know. They don't ask us. And, you know, here in Philadelphia, we're going old school style. We're going back to door. We're knocking. I'm telling people that I think we need to have our physicians start to come out. Why are we the only ones coming out? You have HIV, you have AIDS, you're trans men, women. Why aren't you saying that? Why aren't you speaking? Oh, because guess what? You have the same exact fears and stigmas placed upon you because you are afraid of losing that. Then you have, we were speaking of equality in payments. We have committees now on payment. Why does it take 2 years to have a committee to say to pay people fairly? Pay them. How about the members of the NIH? And I pose it every chance I get. How about you take a 40% pay cut for the next 5 years and see how you live? Let's see how you live with donating your money. And so what are you going to do? You're going to take my health insurance? You can't. So stop. Stop being afraid to ask. We are all members of the same community and embrace one another's. And I'm not proud to say, but I'm not ashamed to say, but years ago, and I'm only going to go back 10 years, I was petrified of trans people. But some of my closest friends are, because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to accept myself as a gay man. I didn't even tell myself that I was positive for 10 years. And which was the worst lie to tell them. You don't tell yourself.
That's absolutely right.
And love yourself and who you are. I could care less what you think about me, because when I want your opinion on me, I normally will give it to you. That's my opinion. I will give you my opinion. That's not going to work for me. So working together cross country, having meetings like this, trans people of all sects of it, invite the gay male, because we are afraid of you. And they still are. That stigmatism, racism, sexism, invite us to stand beside you. Put that face in front of you.
We have been, and I don't want to say that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't because of that fear, and that's on both sides. But I think that at this point, thank you, William, and I want to say thank you to Michael and Danielle and the rest of the organizers here. We've gone 15 minutes over, about 17 minutes over, so we need to let the next group come in.
Juicy conversation. Thank you all. It was beautiful. I loved it, and that's why we didn't mind it going over, because it just needed to happen. So thank you all for sharing your voices and letting people hear what you had to say. Appreciated.
And don't be strangers.
Yes, please.
We need y'all in the conversation. So now the responsibility is on both of us.
If you have my email address, you can get a hold of me.
Okay,
asking me to respond. I can't make the first move. I have too many answers I have to be giving.
Okay. But
and I guarantee you Sydney's in the same place and QB is.
Okay, appreciate you.
Exactly.
Appreciate you all. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Fabulous discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.